Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving deep into a world that, ironically, refuses to die. The Walking Dead.
It really does. It's arguably the most successful experiment in serialized transmedia horror ever attempted.
That's a big claim.
It is, but we aren't just looking at a TV show here. We are examining how a black and white comic book, a really gritty one at that, transformed into this astonishingly resilient, colossal narrative platform.
A narrative platform, I like that term.
It's really a case study in audience loyalty and, modern media economics.
And the timing for this deep dive couldn't be better, which makes this whole analysis extremely timely. We are recording this on December 31st, 2025, and today, right now, The Walking Dead. Dead City Season 2 is dropping on Netflix in the US.
Which is just a perfect, specific example of what we're talking about, the continuous churn and the financial expansion of this franchise.
Exactly. It just underscores that enduring partnership between AMC and the streaming giants.
And that decision by Netflix, to extend its relationship with AMC this past summer, that just confirms it. The TWD universe remains high-value intellectual property, despite any creative ups and downs it's had over the years.
So our mission today is pretty complex, then.
It is. We need to analyze exactly how they built this universe, from the genesis of the core comic to the sprawling map it is today. And then there's the audience. We have to look at how they managed the audience's incredibly volatile feedback.
Which included both record-breaking highs and, let's be honest, some massive creative lows.
Massive lows. And perhaps most importantly for you listening, how we can possibly map out the dense, overlapping, and constantly expanding chronological timeline of all these interconnecting series.
That's the big one. Let's start at the very beginning, with the literal foundation of the empire, the source material.
Right, the comic book. Robert Kirkman, Tony Moore, and Charlie Adlard. They created the groundwork, the whole philosophical underpinning for everything that followed.
The initial premise was just so elegant in its brutality, wasn't it? It stripped away all the high-concept sci-fi and focused on pure, grounded human drama.
Exactly, set against this unthinkable backdrop. And what's truly remarkable in terms of media speed is just how quickly the television industry recognized the value in this specific property. In January 2010, AMC officially greenlit the pilot episode.
That feels incredibly fast, especially for television development back then. What made them move so quickly?
It was an exceptionally confident move, some might even say aggressive. The entire series order was essentially pre-ordered based solely on three things.
Okay, what were they?
First, the built-in fan base and the sheer dramatic potential of the comic book. Second, the early strength of the television scripts. And third, and this was crucial, the involvement of the legendary Frank Darabont.
The director of The Shawshank Redemption. His name alone carried so much weight.
It brought immediate pedigree and gravitas to the project. He signed on as the executive producer, writer, and director for those early foundational episodes.
And that initial creative alignment seemed to pay off massively.
Yeah.
I remember reading that Kirkman, the creator, and the artist Charlie Adlard, they both publicly stated they were genuinely pleased with how faithful that initial TV series was.
And that early creative consensus was absolutely critical. It was the bridge between the established, loyal fan base of the comic and the new, massive TV audience that was about to discover it.
It secured that immediate, vital credibility.
Yes. They didn't just translate the story, they translated the feel of it, the existential dread, the focus on human conflict over zombies. And that translation provided a ready-made library of high-stakes moments and characters.
But wait, wasn't that creative alignment immediately shattered? We're talking about this foundation of trust, but Darabont, the showrunner who basically established that tone and success, was infamously fired.
He was, very abruptly, shortly after the start of Season 2.
So that seems like a major paradox in this whole foundation story.
It is a critical paradox, and it really foreshadows the incredible corporate warfare that would later define the franchise's financial history. While the creative foundation was solid, the business foundation was already showing these huge cracks.
When was he fired?
July 2011. The reports at the time cited budget disputes and crisis-level problems during production. But as we'll get into later, that firing ultimately led to the first of the major lawsuits against AMC.
So the show kept moving, but that initial partnership was just severed, dramatically and legally.
Exactly. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Once you look past that initial production drama and see the sheer audience numbers, once it hit the screen, The Walking Dead wasn't just a hit.
No, it was a cultural singularity.
Yeah.
It fundamentally changed how cable networks were viewed.
Absolutely. The success wasn't just incremental, it was historic. By season 3, the show hit a peak that just redefined American television. It became the first cable show ever to surpass the major broadcast networks.
We're talking ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox.
All of them. In the highly coveted 18 to 49 demographic.
Which is the lifeblood for advertisers. Cable dominating broadcasts like that was unprecedented, a real sign of this huge cultural saturation and economic power.
And the expansion happened almost immediately after that. AMC knew they had to franchise this world.
So they moved fast.
Very fast. Recognizing that cultural momentum, they launched the first spin-off, Fear the Walking Dead, in 2015, and the premiere was explosive.
Give us those numbers again, because they are truly staggering for a cable spinoff.
Okay, so the series premiere of Fear drew an incredible 10.1 million total viewers.
Wow.
And crucially, it netted 6.3 million of those viewers in that 1849 demo. That just established brand new cable records for a series premiere.
So the first season must have been huge.
The highest rated first season of any series in cable history. It averaged 11.2 million viewers when you measured it in Live Plus 3 ratings.
We should probably pause on that term, Live Plus 3. For anyone listening who isn't steeped in media metrics, why was that rating type so crucial for a show like this?
That's vital context. In the past, success was all measured by live ratings, how many people tuned in the moment it aired. But by the early 2010s, delayed viewing was exploding because of DVRs and on-demand.
Right, the way we watch TV was changing.
The Live Plus 3 metric measures viewership within 3 days of the original air date. For TWD, this was essential. Its devoted audience often consumed it later in the week. By dominating this metric, TWD proved that cable could command not only massive viewership, but also sustained cultural attention in this new era.
And that momentum didn't just stay with the plot. It extended to the meta-consumption of the show, the after-show, Talking Dead.
It became a phenomenon in its own right.
It really did.
Talking Dead, hosted by Chris Hardwick, became the most watched talk show on cable television. And this isn't just a fun fact. It points to a significant behavioral shift in the audience.
They weren't just passively consuming the episodes.
Not at all. They required immediate communal decompression, discussion, and analysis. The after show wasn't filler. It became a crucial, high-utility part of the storytelling ecosystem, linking the fans together right after the trauma of the main episode.
The scale of the launch itself was equally impressive. It showed a really deep financial and logistical commitment from the very start.
The marketing was a global masterclass in synchronization. The series debuted during the exact same week in 120 countries. AMC and Fox International channels coordinated this massive worldwide zombie invasion event.
I remember that. It was inescapable. On October 26, 2010, right?
It was designed to be inescapable. That stunt involved invading 26 major cities within a 24-hour period. It started in places like Taipei and Hong Kong and then culminated in Los Angeles just before the American premiere.
It was a clear, globally coordinated signal that this was a must-see event, not just some niche horror show.
A remarkable way to launch a global platform, and the production itself demonstrated the intense scale of the financial operation.
It was a massive undertaking, primarily filmed in Georgia, near Atlanta and Sonoya.
Specifically to capitalize on the lucrative state tax incentives that attract large film and TV productions. And the sheer scale of the sets is astounding. They used Riverwood Studios outside Sonoya, which covers hundreds of acres.
So they weren't just renting locations, they were building permanent, long-lasting structures.
Exactly. They built these expansive, durable sets like the iconic Alexandria Safe Zone and the Sanctuary, and they were also incredibly efficient about it. They had this philosophy that tied logistics to sustainability.
How so?
For instance, the extensive interior sets they built for the prison during season 3, which was a huge location for years, were meticulously repurposed and reused to create the maze-like buildings for the Savior Sanctuary later on.
That's smart. It conserves costs and dramatically speeds up construction time.
And I always appreciated the producer Gail Ann Hurd's focus on environmental initiatives. It feels a bit paradoxical talking about sustainability while filming the end of the world.
It does, but it's smart business.
It is. Hurd implemented several green initiatives aimed at reducing the environmental footprint and at the same time cutting operational costs. One key thing was requiring the production to use the Dawdle app.
To go paperless.
Almost completely paperless for all internal communications. So no more massive binders of paper call sheets or team supplier communications or script updates. Everything was sent digitally to phones and tablets.
Which means it's more secure, you get instant updates, and it's cost efficient. That's applying some serious business innovation in the apocalypse.
And it extended to transportation and set construction, too. They actively encouraged using electric and hybrid vehicles for the crew to save on fuel and reduce emissions. And they made recycling sets a priority.
So reusing materials like lumber and metal structures rather than buying new ones for every single location.
Which saves significant money over the course of 11 seasons. This focus on long-term efficiency and conservation was a major factor in the show's enduring economic viability.
Okay, now we get to the architecture of the beast. We need to shift from the physical production scale to the abstract framework. The move from a single TV show to what you called a self-seeking narrative platform.
Right. It's not just about spinning off popular characters. It's about franchising the environment itself.
This is where we analyze the core concept of transmedia storytelling.
It is the deliberate strategy of dispersing narrative information, character arcs, and world building across multiple distinct platforms, often simultaneously, to achieve audience ubiquity.
And what's truly fascinating here is why the post-apocalyptic genre, especially the zombie version, is so ideally suited for this approach.
It's much more so than other massive high-lore franchises.
Okay, so tell us why TWD is easier to franchise than, say, Game of Thrones or Star Wars.
Well, think about the immense creative effort and the risk involved in maintaining consistency in a franchise like that. You have to worry about alien physiology, complex political histories spanning millennia, unique physics laws, thousands of pages of existing non-negotiable lore.
The bar for internal consistency is just incredibly high. If a new creative team violates even a minor detail, the fan base cries foul.
Exactly. But TWD's post-apocalyptic genre has this inherently simple, elegant world-building formula, and that allows for infinite creative access.
Which is?
Our world, plus a specific, simple, catastrophic event. In this case, walkers. The setting ruined Atlanta, deserted Mexico, isolated Nebraska, or decaying Manhattan relies heavily on the audience's pre-existing knowledge of the real world.
So a new team setting a show in Spain or France doesn't need to study complex alien timelines. They just need to know how the walkers function and that society has collapsed.
That simplicity makes it significantly easier, faster, and cheaper for different creative teams across different platforms to jump in and create content without worrying about violating complex lore.
Which allows for what you called infinitely suspended narratives. The story never needs a true ending.
Only new beginnings in new places. And the show adapted to this necessity by consistently favoring increased moral complexity over simple survival. Because ethical ambiguity generates a wider, more fertile range of ongoing, character-driven narratives.
Let's break down the business architecture AMC created to manage this sprawling ecosystem. The stock, hub, and flow model.
Right, and I appreciate the distinction you made earlier that TWD is not a conventional two-sided market like Amazon or eBay.
It's a crucial differentiator, isn't it?
It is. TWD functions as a self-seeking market. It's designed to facilitate interaction. Like-minded fans interact with the story and they actively seek out interactions with each other about the story. It links everyone.
So let's map the components based on cost, durability, and utility. Starting with stock. These are the high-cost, durable assets.
The foundational content. This requires significant investment, but yields long-term value. It's the anchor content.
So the 11 seasons of the original series, all the major spin-offs like Fear, Dead City, Daryl Dixon, The Ones Who Live, and World Beyond.
Yes. And the original comic books, the AAA console video games, and even the live TV after show Talking Dead all fall here because they are high production, durable, and highly valuable.
Okay, next, the hub. This is the high-utility engine that generates continuous traffic and provides that crucial connective tissue.
The hub is where the dedicated fan goes to manage their experience. This includes the official websites, which serve as central news aggregators, and vitally, the incredibly detailed fan-run wiki.
That wiki is essential, isn't it, for anyone trying to track the complex lore and characters?
It's indispensable. The hub also includes the official webisodes.
These webisodes are interesting because they fill in narrative gaps with relatively low production costs. But the fan reward is huge.
Exactly. They are small, targeted investments that pay off big with a highly engaged audience. For example, the web series Torn Apart detailed the tragic origin story of Bicycle Girl, the walker Rick killed in the very first episode.
I remember that one. And Cold Storage explored the early outbreak in a different setting, and Red Machete
followed the journey of the red-handled machete, an iconic weapon used by Rick. It ensures that even inanimate objects have a narrative history. These hub elements actively expand the lore in these digestible digital pieces.
And finally, we have the flow, the transitory, in-the-moment assets. How does the flow interact with the stock and the hub?
The flow assets are low-cost, highly shareable elements. They're designed purely to maintain daily engagement and stoke real-time interest, especially during the show's off-season.
This is all the social media engagement across Twitter and Facebook.
Right. It generates that immediate discussion. It also involves quick, fun, interactive elements like the mobile app Dead Yourself, which lets users zombify their selfies, or online quizzes like the Apocalypse Survival Test.
So the flow is basically the social media presence and the gamified trivia. How does that feed the overall ecosystem?
The flow is the entry point and the community glue. By engaging daily via social media, which is the flow, fans are driven to the websites, the hub, to find more detailed information. They go to the wiki to settle a plot debate.
And the hub then directly markets the upcoming TV series or console games, which is the stock.
It's a self-feeding loop where casual engagement is channeled toward the high-value, durable assets.
It's just impressive how the franchise has expanded beyond traditional television and merchandise into every conceivable media type.
The financial commitment to transmedia was immediate and successful. The video game adaptation, particularly the critically acclaimed Telltale Adventure series, became a major hit.
That offered 5 separate games, right? Season 1, Season 2, Michonne, A New Frontier, and the final season.
And those narrative-focused games significantly expanded the fan base and added canonical characters like Clementine, who is beloved.
And the adaptation continues into modern gaming formats like VR.
Yes, the Skydance interactive VR games, Saints and Sinners, and its sequel proved the franchise's adaptability. These games offer intense first-person survival horror, which fundamentally changes the viewer's relationship with the walkers.
You go from being a spectator to having this deeply immersive, visceral experience.
Exactly. And the crossovers are where the pervasive cultural footprint truly becomes visible. We're talking about more than just action figures here.
Far more. I mean, McFarlane Toys produced several waves of action figures, meticulously designed, but the franchise extended to completely disparate properties.
We saw crossovers into fighting games like Tekken 7, massive battle royales like Fortnite Battle Royale, and perhaps most surprisingly, a collectible, limited edition card set for the complex strategy game, Magic: The Gathering.
When a horror franchise crosses into strategy card games and anime fighting games, you know it has achieved true mainstream cultural saturation.
There's no question.
Now we have to address the consequence of all this expansion, just how dense and complex this universe has become for the viewer. It's no longer a show you can just pick up.
No, it's an entire television ecosystem requiring serious commitment and, frankly, a massive chronological spreadsheet.
AMC demonstrated its commitment by running the original show for 11 seasons, concluding in 2022. But since 2015, they have aggressively rolled out series designed to explore different locations, characters, and timelines.
And they overlap significantly.
Let's detail the current slate and their core focus for everyone.
Okay, the first expansion, Fear the Walking Dead, ran from 2015 to 2023. It was vital because it explored the very beginning of the outbreak in LA and Mexico, which the original series skipped entirely.
It followed Madison Clark and her family, showing that initial societal breakdown, the confusion, the denial, then the hysteria.
Right, all while dealing with personal issues like her son Nick's drug addiction. But crucially, the show underwent a major creative shift, a semi-reboot starting in season 4.
And that altered its tone and timeline to better align with the core series, right?
It did. Then came the limited series that focused on the wider political landscape.
That would be The Walking Dead, World Beyond, 2020 to 2021.
This 2-season series was set in Nebraska, which was a very clever narrative choice. Early in the original show, Nebraska was referenced as potentially resistant to the apocalypse
due to low population density and high gun ownership.
World Beyond focused on the first generation coming of age in this broken world, and, most importantly, it was the series that heavily detailed the powerful alliance of 3 cities, Portland, Omaha, and the elusive, highly militarized Civic Republic Military, or CRM.
And the recent strategy, following the core show's conclusion, is focused entirely on major character follow-ups.
It's a direct response to audience desire for closure on beloved characters. Tales of the Walking Dead in 2022 offered a quick, 1-season episodic anthology format.
Then came the headliners that are driving the current wave, Dead City.
2023 to present. It follows the very tense pairing of Maggie and Negan into a chaotic, walled-off Manhattan. Season 2, which you can watch today, continues that narrative. It shows Maggie reluctantly forced to align with the New Babylon Federation to enter Manhattan, hunting a former savior named the Croat.
who is now being influenced by a figure known as the Dama.
Right. And then you have the most ambitious geographic shift, Daryl Dixon in Europe.
The Walking Dead. Daryl Dixon is an ambitious, costly, and I think necessary shift to prevent narrative fatigue.
I agree. It places Daryl in France, encountering communities struggling with the ruins of European civilization and introducing these new, supposedly faster, stronger variants of walkers.
And Season 2, subtitled The Book of Carol, showed Carol actively searching for Daryl, crossing the Atlantic herself. It adds another layer of international scope.
And for Season 3, which began in September 2025, the production and setting shifted entirely to Spain, places like Costa de Morte and Salaz del Mar, where Daryl and Carol encounter a community dealing with the supposed Spanish monarchy.
It's a truly global expansion. It validates that infinitely suspended narrative concept you mentioned.
And of course, the return of the central couple, Rick and Michonne.
The ones who live in 2024. That brought back Rick Grimes and Michonne, rounding out this massive slate of continuation stories, all deeply interconnected with the mysteries established in World Beyond regarding the CRM.
So what does this all mean for the audience trying to keep track? You promised us a map, but the chronology sounds like a nightmare.
It really does. It creates a huge burden on the casual viewer.
Okay. To simplify this nightmare, let's establish 3 major chronological anchors. Anchor 1. The beginning. This is Fear the Walking Dead, seasons 1 through 3. They show the very start.
Beginning.
Anchor 2. The core conflict. This is the original TWD seasons 1 through 8. These 2 anchors are mostly sequential.
Okay, so far so good.
Anchor 3. The overlap and expansion. This is where it gets complex, as almost everything else overlaps significantly. Fear, seasons 4 through 8, Tales, World Beyond, and the later seasons of the main show, 9 through 11, all run concurrently.
So the viewer needs to recognize that the new series Dead City, Daryl Dixon, The Ones Who Live, are set after the main show ends, but their antagonists, like the CRM, were established years earlier in the timeline in World Beyond.
Precisely. The series demand that fans become amateur chronologists just to follow the overarching story of characters like Rick and Michonne.
It's a huge commitment, and that commitment brings us to the fascinating paradox of audience sentiment. The difference between that initial critical high and the creative lows the franchise hit.
The initial reaction was overwhelmingly positive. The Walking Dead Season 1 enjoyed an 89% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, but maintaining quality across 11 seasons and multiple spin-offs, especially under intense production pressure, is nearly impossible.
And we saw significant negative feedback and a corresponding drop in linear viewership during Seasons 7 and 8.
We did.
That period, following Negan's brutal introduction, was often cited as a series of ill-advised storytelling choices. It led to immense fan frustration. The pacing slowed, the brutality ramped up, and people were leaving.
That's true for linear ratings. But this is precisely where the power of the narrative platform demonstrated its true resilience. This is the paradox you noted.
If the audience was so frustrated by the brutality and the pacing, why did their social media engagement simultaneously soar?
Because the frustration didn't translate into a lack of interest. It translated into a desire to commune and complain within the community.
So they were hate-watching, but talking about it.
Even as linear ratings fell, the sheer engine of fan engagement kept the community thriving. During Season 7, despite the creative lows, TWD averaged over 2 million fan interactions per episode on Facebook and Twitter alone.
2 million per episode.
It was, by far, America's most talked about show on social media, often doubling the tally of its closest competitor.
So the community was strong enough to sustain itself, even when the quality of the stock asset was temporarily compromised. The platform was resilient enough to weather the creative storms because the community was invested in the world, not just the week-to-week plot.
Exactly. The narrative platform model ensured that the conversation, which is high value to AMC, continued even when the physical consumption of the live show declined. And the spin-offs have also seen mixed reception.
World Beyond saw critics praise performances, but they often criticized its pacing.
And Fear the Walking Dead Season 8 held a middling 60% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes. The critical consensus has fractured, but the community structure itself remains robust.
This resilience leads us to an incredibly resonant case study in emotional engagement, which isn't the television platform at all, but the Telltale video game series. It offers a unique window into audience agency.
It's one of the best examples of how interactive media can manipulate emotional connection. Let's use the story of Lee Everett and Clementine in the first season as a case study.
The choices you make feel absolutely monumental at the time, right? I mean, deciding whether to save Sean or Duck in that early scene, for instance.
Yes, and this is the famous illusion of plot agency. The choices feel life-altering, but the main narrative structure is fixed. Sean always dies. Herschel always kicks the survivors off the farm.
So it uses recombining pathways. Regardless of your choice, the narrative eventually funnels you back to the next major fixed plot point.
It does.
So if the major plot is fixed, why does the player feel so invested? Where does the real agency lie?
The real agency is entirely character-based and relational. The choices define the identity of your player character, Lee Everett, and crucially, they shape his personal, moral relationship with the other non-playable characters.
You decide what kind of person Lee is: trustworthy, impulsive, compassionate, or ruthless.
And the narrative integrity rests on how the other characters perceive Lee's personality, not on the fate of the overarching plot.
And the game designers masterfully manipulated that emotional connection to generate guilt and self-reflection.
They did. The game deliberately avoided an explicit moral scoring system, which might label a choice as, plus 10 points for good. Instead, the situations were designed to be ethically ambivalent. You usually had to sacrifice something good for something else that was necessary.
And they intensified player guilt through reminders.
Exactly. Yeah. And that confrontation with the stranger near the end stands out as the ultimate use of that mechanic.
It's a perfect design choice.
The stranger, the game's final antagonist, explicitly and calmly judges your past questionable actions. He provides this retrospective summary of Lee's morally compromising decisions.
So if, earlier in the game, you chose to protect Carly over another survivor, Doug,
the stranger might condemn you, saying, and I'm quoting from the source, "You let a boy get yanked out of a window and into the night so you could protect a pretty girl with a gun."
That forces you, the player, to internalize the consequences. It makes you feel judged by the narrative itself rather than by some external score. It's not just observing an anti-hero like Negan on screen, it's being the morally compromised anti-hero.
And that emotional toll works because by the final episode, the player is so deeply invested in the relationship with Clementine. Their final, gut-wrenching choice to instruct the bitten Lee on whether Clementine should shoot him or leave him behind is agonizing, precisely because the player's agency has shaped Lee's personality and Clementine's view of him.
It transforms passive consumption into active emotional ownership.
It really does.
We absolutely cannot talk about the financial success of this massive narrative platform without touching on the high-stakes legal battles that underscored just how valuable this intellectual property became.
And just how much money was at stake.
Exactly.
The enormous financial success of the core series was challenged by two major complex lawsuits. The first and most famous involved Frank Darabont, the initial showrunner we mentioned earlier.
After his abrupt firing in July 2011, he and his agents sued AMC, alleging a massive breach of contract over profit sharing.
And the central accusation was that AMC was denying him and his agency the promised profits by manipulating the accounting.
Right. This is where we have to discuss the mechanism of vertical integration.
Vertical integration means the corporate entity that owns the network, which is AMC Networks, also owns the studio that produces the show, AMC Studios. Darabont accused AMC of self-dealing by setting an unconscionably low license fee formula for the show.
Okay, let's unpack that for the listener. How does a studio report a massive hit show as losing money?
It's all about internal accounting. When AMC Studios produced The Walking Dead, they then sold the right to air it to AMC Networks. Because AMC owned both sides, they could determine the price.
They set the imputed license fee, the fee the network paid the studio, artificially low.
Exactly. They argued that this low price reflected a fair arm's-length transaction for a new cable show.
But because the show was a massive hit, it was generating hundreds of millions in advertising and ancillary revenue for the network side of the business.
Precisely. By setting that internal fee low, AMC Studios could show that the production side was barely covering costs, or often running at a massive deficit. At one point, Darabont's side reported that AMC claimed a $49 million deficit after season 2.
A $49 million deficit on one of the biggest shows on television.
And since Darabont was entitled to a percentage of the profits earned by the studio, reporting a deficit ensured he would never see a cent, even though the show was making billions for the overarching corporation. It allowed AMC to retain maximum profit while minimizing their profit-sharing obligations.
That is a masterclass in corporate financial maneuvering. What was the ultimate outcome of that high-stakes battle?
Darabont was eventually seeking over $280 million in damages. The entire suit, which had dragged on for years, was finally settled in July 2021.
And the settlement figure.
AMC agreed to pay out a staggering $200 million, plus ongoing future royalty payments. That settlement figure alone demonstrates the immense suppressed revenue generated by the franchise.
And the legitimacy of Darabont's claims regarding that low imputed license fee. And he wasn't the only creative partner to allege profit-sharing issues based on that same mechanism.
No. Following Darabont's lead, Robert Kirkman, along with executive producers like Gail Ann Hurd and Glenn Mazzara, filed similar lawsuits in 2017.
They cited the same breach of contract over profits owed due to AMC's vertical integration.
Yes. They argued their profit share was dramatically reduced due to the transition to AMC Studios. The Hollywood Reporter estimated that this separate lawsuit could have been seeking damages potentially up to $1 billion.
$1 billion. That is a staggering figure. It really demonstrates the extreme value of this platform.
It highlights the extreme value and the financial complexity built into the platform's business model. Now, AMC was successful in defending this particular separate lawsuit. The court ruled they had followed the contractual terms for calculating modified adjusted gross receipts.
But the legal warfare itself speaks volumes.
It does. And despite all that, Kirkman and the other executive producers quickly affirmed that they would continue working as partners with AMC to ensure the ongoing production and success of the franchise.
This deep dive has clearly shown us the monumental scale of the TWD franchise. It wasn't just a TV hit. It was an aggressively engineered platform designed to generate both high-cost, durable stock assets and low-cost, real-time flow engagement.
And it survived. It survived abrupt showrunner firings, massive creative lows that alienated viewers, and major legal battles purely because of the inherent strength and financial structure of that self-sustaining platform.
It truly stands as a defining, even revolutionary example of modern serialized transmedia storytelling.
It proved that in the age of digital media, the story needs to flow across every screen and every interaction point to maintain its cultural relevance. That stock hub and flow model allowed AMC to maintain a highly active, vibrant, and committed fan community year-round.
Even when the flagship show was only airing for a fraction of the year.
Exactly. And it's all built on that inherently simple, post-apocalyptic framework we discussed. That accessibility allowed for the expansion to happen so rapidly and so globally.
And that's the final key insight we need to leave you with, isn't it?
It is. The TWD universe has mastered the art of infinitely suspended fiction because the post-apocalyptic genre relies on our pre-existing world knowledge, that simple formula of the current world plus a specific catastrophe. The world building is nearly effortless for new creative teams in new locations.
It makes the genre the easiest for different writers, producers, and game designers to participate in without violating the integrity of the narrative universe.
So the zombie apocalypse, a narrative about the complete and total breakdown of modern society, is ironically the most stable, most enduring, and easiest world to maintain for a massive global franchise.
It is.
And that leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to consider. This franchise survived legal battles over hundreds of millions of dollars and created decisions that alienated viewers, all while maintaining a massive social footprint. What does it say about our culture and our modern appetite for serialized narrative that the easiest, most enduring, and most profitable story we can continuously build and rebuild is one where the world has already reached its definitive, catastrophic end?